All right, guys, what we're going to be doing today in this video is you're going to be basically doing a think aloud. And a think aloud is when you read a story, you start reading it and you'll just read it aloud, and then you'll stop periodically, all right, to talk about what you're reading. In other words, what's going on in your head. For example, so in the video, and we're actually going to use the document that we created earlier because you've done some text marking, and I'm going to show you that in a second. But in its most basic sense, a think aloud is just you making visible this, what you're thinking as you're reading. So, for example, if I was doing just a raw think aloud about this without any text marking, it would be I would start by reading a line or two, stop, and I talk about it. I'd read another line or two, stop, and talk about it. So I would start by 5 days a week, the lowest paid substitute teacher in the district drives her father's used Mercury to Howland 3079th, where she eases it, mud flaps and all, down the ramp into the garage of Patrick Henry Junior High School, a school where she'll teach back-to-back classes without so much as a coffee break. So I guess what I'm thinking about here is that this is a person who's really working hard. She's a low-paid substitute, so I'm kind of going back and talking about. I'm just making some basic judgments here. She doesn't have a very nice car, and she's really working really hard. So then what I'll do is I'll pick up once I've done thinking aloud, then I'll start reading again. So, and all of this is depressing her until she remembers her date last night and hopes it would lead to much bigger things, maybe love. So she quickens her pace toward the main office to pick up her class lists. So it doesn't seem like she's motivated at all by being there to teach or work as a substitute. Like she'd rather be with some guy or be in love with him. So I guess the question I have is, why is she even teaching? So that's basically what a think aloud is. You read, you stop, you talk about what you read, making inferences, drawing conclusions, making little summaries, asking yourself questions. Now, what you've done already is you have created this document. Remember, we went through it in class. So we did a first draft read where you just read it once and then you made blue comments, just focusing in on the basic story and how to remember it. Then the second draft read, you focused on characters. And then the third draft read, you focused on themes. So actually, when you do your think aloud, you don't have to make the stuff up. You just read literally what you wrote, okay? And then so, for example, 5 days a week, the lowest paid substitute teacher in the district drives her used father's Mercury. Well, it doesn't seem like she has much money, okay, because she's driving a used car to Howe and 79th, where she eases it, mud flaps and all. I'm wondering if the mud flaps just really kind of are symbolic of something. Like maybe she just doesn't like herself. Down the ramp to the garage of Henry Junior High School, a school where she'll teach back-to-back classes without so much as a coffee break. I'm wondering if this teacher just feels, resentment because she's just so exhausted. I just wonder if this is like a story about how teachers are just really kind of not resented or not really respected by society. And all of this depressing her until she remembers her date from last night and hopes, yeah, she's clearly a dreamer here, that it might lead to bigger things. Now, so when you're actually doing this, it's like you really can't do a think aloud if you're just reading the story cold. A think aloud has to be based on multiple readings, right? So that's basically what you're going to do in this video. You're just going to literally read, and so you'll be reading. This is the actual story. Then you'll stop, and you don't just say doesn't have much money to how, you need to kind of explain what you mean here. So you should say more than what's written here. These are just the ideas that you have. And you can see that these ideas are kind of based on, lots of different reading skills, just basic labeling, inferencing, conclusions about theme, and you can kind of pull it all together. So this is what your think aloud should sound like. Does that make sense? I hope so. Okay.